The throaty growl of a misfiring engine sliced through the quiet of a Kentucky dawn, pulling Ethan Carter from beneath the hood of a battered pickup. He straightened, wiping sweat from his brow despite the early hour. His calloused hands smudged with grease. The air in Carter's auto shop smelled of oil and metal, a scent as familiar to him as his own heartbeat. But today, that heartbeat stuttered. The sound wasn't just any engine, it was something exotic, expensive, and very much out of place in this small town. Ethan's hazel eyes narrowed as a sleek, midnight blue Maserati limped into his gravel lot, its purr marred by a telltale hiccup. His pulse quickened, not with excitement but with a wary curiosity. In a town where pickups and sedans ruled, this car was an alien, and its driver was about to change everything. Ethan adjusted the worn leather tool belt that had once belonged to his father, its stitching frayed but still holding his initials. Showen Kinenogtichan Pijad. C. The belt was a tether to a man who taught him that engines, like people need them, spoke their truths if you listened closely enough. At 38, Ethan felt the weight of those lessons daily, especially now, as he struggled to keep the garage afloat while raising his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, alone, since his wife, Sarah, had passed 2 years ago. Every morning was a battle against a tide of bills and a loneliness that clung like damp air. He glanced toward the small apartment attached to the garage, where Lily was probably still asleep. Her brown curls splayed across her pillow. The thought of her softened the knot in his chest, but only slightly. The Maserati's door opened with a smooth click, and out stepped a woman who looked like she'd walked off the pages of a city magazine. Her tailored blazer was the color of storm clouds, her auburn hair pulled into a flawless chignon. She carried herself with the kind of confidence that made the world rearrange itself around her. But her green eyes betrayed a flicker of unease as the engine coughed again. Ethan caught at the moment where her polished exterior cracked, revealing someone who, for all her power, was at the mercy of a machine. Morning. He called, "When is Sony?" "Yeah," stepping forward, his voice steady despite the churn in his gut. "Sounds like your car's got something to say." "Aron." She turned, her gaze sweeping the garage, its cracked concrete floor, the rusting shelves, the faded sign that still read Carter's Auto Shop. Esther, 1968. Her expression was one Ethan knew well, the look of someone who'd taken a wrong turn. "I saw your sign from the highway," she said, her voice crisp but not unkind. "I'm hoping you can help. I'm Claire Thornton, and I'm already late for a meeting in Louisville." Ethan nodded, wiping his hands on a rag that was more holes than fabric. "Ethan Carter, let's hear what's wrong." He moved toward the car, his movements deliberate, like a doctor approaching a patient. Claire started the engine, and Ethan leaned in, his ear tuned to the subtle discord in the Maserati song. "Fuel system's acting up," he said after a moment. "Could be the injectors. Not a quick fix, but I can take a look. You're welcome to wait, but it'll be at least an hour to diagnose." Claire's fingers tightened around her phone, her manicured nails catching the light. Frustration flashed across her face, sharp and raw. "An hour, if full." "I don't have an hour. I need to be in Louisville by noon." She paced a small circle, her heels clicking against the gravel. Each step a reminder of the world she belonged to, one where time was money and delays were unacceptable. Ethan felt a pang of sympathy but kept his tone even. "This isn't the kind of car you push when it's hurting. Drive it like this, and you're looking at a much bigger problem." He hesitated, then added, "There's a diner down the road. Decent coffee. I can call you when I know more." Claire stopped pacing, her shoulders sagging slightly. For a moment, she wasn't the CEO of Thornton Dynamics, a tech empire built on cutting-edge automation. She was just a woman stranded in a small town, her plans unraveling. "Fine, how did you know?" she said, her voice softer now, tinged with resignation. "I'll wait." She glanced at her watch, a vintage piece that gleamed with quiet elegance, and Ethan caught the way her fingers lingered on it, as if it held more than just time. As Claire walked toward the diner, Ethan returned to the Maserati, popping the hood to reveal an engine that was as much art as machine. His hands moved with practiced ease, but his mind wandered. The garage was bleeding money. 2 chain shops had opened nearby, luring customers with slick ads and lower prices. Ethan's reputation for honest work kept him afloat, but barely. He thought of Lily, who'd started waking herself up for school, setting her own alarm because he was always buried in work. The guilt was a dull ache, ever present. By the time Claire returned, her coffee cup in hand, Ethan had pinpointed the issue. Fuel injectors. Like I thought, Sananiawam, he said, straightening up. I can get the part here by noon. Have it fixed by mid-afternoon. Claire's relief was palpable, but it was laced with something else, curiosity. Maybe, as she watched him work, you don't see many Maseratis around here, do you? She asked, leaning against the workbench, her posture less guarded now. Not many, Ethan admitted, a half-smile tugging at his lips. But an engine's an engine. Doesn't matter if it's a Maserati or a minivan. They all need someone to listen. He didn't mention his father's journals, stacked in the office. Tuzmatsterenheim, filled with notes on every car imaginable. Knowledge, his father had said, was the one thing no one could take from you. Claire's gaze softened, and for a moment, the distance between their worlds seemed to shrink. My father used to say something similar, she said, her fingers brushing her watch again. He built engines before he built companies, said they taught him patience. Her voice carried a warmth that hadn't been there before, and Ethan felt a spark of connection. Fleeting but real. Sounds like a wise man, he said, then gestured toward the diner. If you're sticking around, I could use a break. Join me for a coffee. Claire hesitated, her corporate instincts warring with something softer. Then she nodded. Why not? Ruby's Diner was a time capsule, its red vinyl booths and jukebox straight out of the 80s. Ethan slid into a booth across from Claire, who looked as out of place as her Maserati in his lot. She spread a paper road atlas across the table, its edges worn from use. I'm thinking of taking the scenic route to Louisville, she said, tracing a winding path with her finger. It's longer, but I don't know. I want to drive this car the way it was meant to be driven. Ethan's eyebrows lifted. Scenic route. That's not the choice of someone rushing to a board meeting. Claire laughed, a sound that was equal parts surprise and relief. Maybe I'm tired of rushing. She leaned forward, her eyes bright with an idea that seemed to take shape as she spoke. Ethan, what if you came with me? Just to Louisville. The car might need you, and I could use the company. Ethan nearly dropped his coffee. You want me to leave my garage and drive across the state with you? The idea was absurd. He had Lily, the garage, a dozen repairs waiting, but there was something in Claire's expression, hope, vulnerability that made him pause. I'd pay you, she said quickly, well above your rates, and I'd cover any childcare costs for your daughter. I saw her photo on your workbench. Lily, right? Ethan's chest tightened at the mention of Lily. Yeah. No, really? She's 7. Emond. And I'm all she's got. He thought of his sister, Rachel, who'd been begging to take Lily for a weekend, but still, leaving everything behind for a stranger's whim. Why me? He asked. You could hire a pro driver. Someone who works on cars like yours every day. Claire's fingers traced the atlas's faded lines. Because when you looked at my car, you saw more than a paycheck. You saw what it could be. My father used to say you can tell a lot about someone by how they treat what's entrusted to them. You passed that test. Ethan stared at the atlas, the route snaking through hills and valleys he'd only seen in photos. The money would help, God knows the garage needed it. But it was more than that. It was the pull of something new, something he hadn't felt since Sarah's laughter filled their home. I'd need to make calls, he said slowly. Check with my sister on arrange for the garage. Claire slid a business card across the table, her personal number written in elegant script. Take an hour. Think it over. I'll be here. An hour later, Ethan was on the phone with Rachel, who didn't hesitate. Take the chance. Lily will be fine with me. You need this. Inakuri. By noon, the Maserati was fixed. Lily was packed for her aunts Rio and Shimon, and Ethan had called in a retired mechanic to cover the garage. His heart raced as he slid into the passenger seat, the leather cool against his work-worn hands. Claire started the engine, and as they pulled onto the open road, Ethan felt the weight of his world lift. Just a little. The first hours were quiet, the Maserati's hum filling the space between them. Claire drove with precision, her hands steady on the wheel. But Ethan noticed her fingers occasionally drifting to the radio, hesitating. Finally, she spoke. Tell me about Lily. Ethan smiled, the tension in his shoulders easing. She's a firecracker, loves books about inventors, wants to build her own robots someday. She's the reason I keep going. His voice caught, and he looked out the window. The rolling hills blurring past. Claire's expression softened. She sounds like you. My father was like that, always tinkering, always dreaming. She turned on the radio, and instead of the expected news, classic rock filled the car. Surprised, she asked, catching his look. A little ear we wantin', Ethan admitted. Didn't peg you for Springsteen? I'm not all boardrooms and balance sheets, she said, her smile playful. My father used to play this in his office. Drove his partners crazy. As the miles passed, their conversation flowed about engines, string, dreams, the weight of expectations. Claire spoke of her father's legacy, how Thornton Dynamics had grown from a garage workshop to a global name, and how she sometimes felt like she was losing herself in its demands. Ethan shared stories of Sarah, of learning to braid Lily's hair, of the quiet pride in fixing a car just right. By the time they stopped at a scenic overlook, the air between them felt lighter, charged with possibility. The view was breathtaking hills stretching toward the horizon, kissed by golden light. Claire turned off the engine, leaving the radio on low. I almost didn't stop at your garage, she admitted. Almost called my dealer in Lexington. But your sign, it reminded me of my father's first shop. Something told me to trust you. Ethan met her gaze, his heart pounding. I'm glad you did. The moment hung between them, fragile and full of unspoken questions. When they pulled back onto the road, the distance between their worlds felt smaller. The Maserati carrying them towards something neither could yet name. A sudden storm forced them off the highway that evening. The rain so thick it turned the world to gray. Ethan spotted a turnoff to a small town called Willow Creek, and Claire guided the car into a motel's flickering neon glow, just as hail began to fall. The power was out, the clerk handing them keys by candlelight. Diner across the street still open, he said, barely looking up from his newspaper. Better hurry. They ran through the rain, Ethan's flashlight cutting through the dark. The diner was a warm oasis, its generator humming. Over coffee and peach cobbler, the barriers between them crumbled. Claire spoke of her first job in her father's mailroom, how she'd fought to prove herself in a world that doubted her. Ethan shared the raw ache of losing Sarah, the way Lily's laughter kept him anchored. Their words spilled out, unguarded, as if the storm had stripped away pretense. I've been thinking of stepping back, Claire confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. The company's become this machine. I don't know if I'm leading it or just keeping it running. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes steady. Sounds like you're looking for something real again, like what your father built. Claire's smile was bittersweet. Maybe, what about you? Ever think about more than the garage? Every day, Ethan said softly. But Lily, she's my world. I can't let her down. The storm eased, but they lingered. The flashlights beam a small circle of intimacy. When they finally returned to the motel, the night felt different, less like an interruption and more like a gift. Morning brought clear skies and a new rhythm to their journey. At a roadside lake, they ate deli sandwiches on a sun-warmed log, the Maserati's reflection shimmering on the water. Claire tried skipping stones, laughing when they sank. I was never good at this, she said, her usual polish replaced by a childlike joy. Ethan opened the locket he wore, showing her a faded photo of Lily as a newborn, cradled by Sarah. Unhadorazanana, gasharpana. This is what keeps me going. He said, Destinusuri Kanawanas, his voice thick with love and loss. Claire's hand brushed his, tentative but sure. They're beautiful. Lily's got your eyes full of questions. As they talked, Ethan saw Claire not as a CEO, but as a woman rediscovering herself. Just as he was, the moment stretched, their shoulders brushing, the lake's ripples carrying their shared silence. When they returned to the car, the locket felt lighter against his chest, as if Sarah's memory was blessing this new beginning. A festival sign caught Claire's eye that afternoon, and on a whim, one, she took the exit. The Willow County Fair was a riot of color and sound banjos, barbecue, and families laughing under string lights. Claire bought a hand-woven bracelet, Ethan a carved wooden bird for Lily. When the band struck up a waltz, Claire's eyes sparkled with mischief. Dance with me, she said, pulling him into the crowd. Ethan's hands found her waist, her fingers resting on his shoulders. They moved together, walking on turn, clumsy at first, then fluid, as if they'd always known this rhythm. Sarah used to say I was the only mechanic who could waltz, Ethan murmured, his breath warm against her ear. Claire's laughter was free, her corporate mask forgotten. The world spun around them. But in that moment, it was just the two of them, dancing under a Kentucky sky. Reality crashed in the next morning with a news alert on Claire's phone. Ipashamin, Thornton Dynamics, CEO's absence, sparks leadership concerns. Her face hardened, the joy of the festival replaced by a cold dread. They're saying I'm unfit to lead, she said, her voice tight. Because I missed one meeting. Ethan watched her scroll through messages, her knuckles white. Would your father have let them control him like this? He asked gently. Claire's eyes flashed with defiance, then softened. No, he'd have told them to go to hell. She turned off her phone, silence a small rebellion. But Ethan's phone buzzed too, his mechanic friend struggling with a tricky repair back home. The weight of their responsibility settled over them, a reminder that their escape was temporary. At a roadside diner, the tension boiled over. You don't get it, Claire snapped, her coffee cup trembling in her hand. I can't just walk away. Thousands of people depend on me. And you think my world's so simple? Ethan shot back, his voice low but sharp. Try keeping a business alive while raising a kid who's already lost too much. Try telling her I can't be there because someone else's car comes first. Claire stood, her chair scraping the floor. This was a mistake. I should have stayed in my world. And you in yours. She stormed out, leaving Ethan staring at the coffee-stained table, his anger warring with regret. Outside, the air was thick with the promise of another storm. Ethan found Claire by the Maserati, her arms crossed, her eyes glistening. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. But I didn't mean, I know. Ethan said, stepping closer, Me neither. They stood in silence, the distance between them shrinking. Maybe we're both just scared of what this could be. Claire nodded, her hand finding his. Maybe we're supposed to be. That night, at a Grand Canyon lookout, they met before dawn, the canyon a vast shadow below. Claire wrapped her bracelet around her wrist, her breath visible in the chill. I've spent my life avoiding messes, she said. But us, it's worth the mess. Ethan took her hand, the locket warm against his chest. My father used to say the best moments happen when you can't see the path. You just take the step. As the sun rose, painting the canyon in fiery hues, Claire kissed him, soft and sure. The world felt new, their fears illuminated by the light of possibility. In Louisville, Claire faced her board, but not alone. She proposed a partnership. Carter's Auto Shop would become Thornton Dynamics' flagship service center for electric vehicles. Fully funded but independently owned, Ethan would oversee a new green energy lab in town, merging his expertise with her vision. The board resisted, but Claire's resolve, fueled by the journey, won them over. Back home, Lily ran to Ethan, her arms wide. Did you have an adventure, Daddy? She asked, her eyes bright. Claire knelt beside her, offering a small key from her father's first workshop. Your dad says you like building things, she said. Maybe you can start with this. A year later, Carter's Auto Shop gleamed with new equipment, its sign now reading a Thornton Dynamics partner. Ethan and Claire, now engaged, balanced their worlds, her leading from both city and town. Him running the lab and garage, Lily, in matching overalls, proudly showed off her latest invention as they posed for a family photo. Mrs. Dawson Nerida, their loyal customer, joined in, her ancient Chevy purring thanks to Ethan's care. The photo hung in both the garage and Thornton Dynamics boardroom, a testament to what they'd built, not just a business, but a life. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real, forged on a road that started with a broken Maserati and led to a love that bridged every distance.